How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing the first thoughts today. Today we're doing Kaervek. It's Kaervek. We're doing Kaervek today, the Spiteful. So this is another one of the Core 2021 commanders, the M21 commanders. This is the black one. This one is basically Knight of Souls Betrayal on a stick. Just other creatures get -1/-1. It's an interesting card. And I think it's got some really cool gameplay routes to do with it. So first of all, I think the best way to build this deck is going to be with a lot of creatures that will instantly die when Kaervek's in play. Just a lot of 1 power creatures, so that way, or 1 toughness creatures, so that way you can get death triggers. It's going to be all about death triggers. Just trying to rack up death triggers and recur them, and then they die immediately. Just like, you don't even need sack outlets in this deck. And one of the best cards I think to throw in this deck is going to be like Mikaeus, because it turns all your creatures into a little bit tougher, so that way you can play it, it'll die, you get a death trigger, comes back with a counter on it, so it sticks that time. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do here. And so first of all, I'm going to talk about all the cards that have death triggers, like cards that are really good to throw in that just do something when a creature you control dies, or when a creature dies. We got stuff like Bastion of Remembrance and Vindictive Vampire. Both these are Blood Artist type effects. And I would have said Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat as well, except they will immediately die, so they don't really do much. It's just that they're not great in the deck. But because Vindictive Vampire is a little bit bigger, and because Bastion is an enchantment, those will stick around. You can do stuff with Grave Pact, Dictate of Erebos, and Butcher of Malakir. All 3 of those are very solid in the deck, because you'll just be playing a dude for like 2 mana, and then everyone has to sack a creature because your dude immediately dies. There's a lot of card draw you can do when creatures die. So you can put in Dark Prophecy, Erebos the Bleak-Hearted, Grim Horror Specs, Midnight Reaper, Liliana Dreadhorde Champion. All of those are very, very good in this deck because, I mean, it's just going to be, like, you play a card, like, all your 1 toughness creatures will just replace themselves. Because they'll just immediately, they'll be cantrips and death triggers at the same time, which is really, really nice. And there's a lot of cool creatures that you can throw in a deck that have very interesting death triggers that will immediately die. You can throw in stuff like Bloodghast. This one doesn't actually have a trigger. The thing is, this one is recurable. Every time you play a land, you get a death trigger, which is really, really nice. Abyssal Gatekeeper, which is a really cool one. It just, when it so you'll play it, it dies, and each player sacks a creature, so it's a good, Fleshbag Marauder type of thing. Fleshbag Marauder, those cards are also probably pretty good in this deck. You can throw in Noxious Toad, which when it's put into the graveyard, you have each opponent discard a card. Which, I mean, it's just solid for 3 mana, just to make everyone discard a card. It's not terrible. Plus, like, you end up drawing cards and stuff like that. Like, there's just a lot that's going to happen every time you play one of these. Direfleet Hoarder. When it dies, you get a treasure, so it's kind of just like 1 mana death trigger, because it replaces one of the 2 mana that you spend with a treasure token. There's Perilous Mirror, which when that one dies, you can shock something or someone. So since everything's already going to be -1/-1, it's basically a bolt, which is solid. It's basically a 2 mana bolt that gives you a death trigger. And so then we got Discordant Piper, Carrier Thrall, and Mere Sire. These 3 I put together just because of the fact that they're actually just 2 death triggers in a row, because when they enter, they die, and they trigger, bringing a token into play that will immediately die as well. So it's just double death triggers, which can be very good in this deck. We got something like Vindictive Lich. Very, very cool card. This one is probably one of the better cards in the deck. Because when it dies, you get to choose one of the 3 things per person. So each opponent has to deal with something. One opponent's going to have to sack a creature, one's discarding 2 cards, and one's losing 5 life. So you just get to peg each of your opponents and hit whichever one you think you can hit the hardest with each ability. Yeah. if someone's at lower life total, you can knock them down even lower. Someone's only got one creature and it's their commander, you can make them sack it. Someone's got 2 cards in their hand, you can make them discard both cards. It can be pretty good. Death's Head Buzzard. That's another one I want to talk about. When it dies, all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. So basically, it doubles Kaervek's ability, so -2 to everything, which is solid. It's basically like an Elish Norn for a second there, which, if you've played Elish Norn, you know that it's going to wipe out a lot of creatures. Next up, I want to talk about Golgari Thug. So that's just a way that you can play a creature, it dies, you go and get a creature from your graveyard, put it on top of your library so you can get another trigger from that one. It's just kind of a good way to reuse stuff and continue with the death trigger theme. And Mere Moon Vessel is the last one I want to talk about here. So Mere Moon Vessel, when it's put into the graveyard, you get to add 1 mana, so it's kind of just like almost Manamorphose. You spend 1 colorless to get 1 colorless, while also netting whatever triggers you have. So like draw cards, typically going to be drawing a couple cards. And yeah, so those are the creatures I think that work really well in this deck if you're playing it this way. You can throw in Shiri with Shiri Shizo's Caretaker. That's a good one in the deck because you're going to have a lot of small creatures. And so you can play Shiri, and then every time you play something, it just immediately dies. End of turn, it comes back. Trigger, dies, whatever. And so every end step, you're just getting all these triggers to happen over and over and over again, which can be disgusting. And yeah, I think that that's probably the best way to play it. You could also play the deck in a more destroy your opponent's stuff style. So throw in stuff like Knight of Soul's Betrayal. Throw in as many cards that can lower the toughness of your opponent's creatures to try to just make it so they can't have creatures. That could be a very good way to take this. You can throw in something like a Massacre Worm, so that way they really get hit hard by these cards, because every time one of their creatures dies, they're losing life. Throw in Revel in Riches as a win con. There's a lot of things you can do. And since it's mono black, you're going to have Cabal Coffers, Urborg, Kirk, Bulls of Citadel. You can throw in Torment of Hailfire and stuff like that, because, I mean, Cabal Coffers makes a lot of mana. So, those are my thoughts on Kaervek. What's the rest of the name? Kaervek the Spiteful. Those are my thoughts on Kaervek the Spiteful. If you guys have any specific ideas for this deck, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to see some lists. If you think I missed a really cool card or an interaction that works really well with Kaervek, let me know. I'd love to see it. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Check me out on Patreon if you really want to support the channel. You get to talk to us in Discord, and you get to just play games with us a lot. Like, we try to get games going as much as possible. Sometimes, like, recently it's been a little more difficult, but, like, we try to get games in, and it's fun when we do. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.